Pickles.
Steps back, this is the end of the ride. I want my money back. I waited in line in the cold and the rain, waited in heat, my sweat and blood, waited to hear from a million people. This is the end of the ride.
I grew up in a family of hunters, so both my grandfathers on either side of my family were hunters, and as a family, we would when we go on holiday, we'd go on like harvesting missions, I guess. So we go, we did a lot of fishing in the summer, and then in the fall we do like family moose hunting trips and go out into the BC's wilderness and harvest our food for the year. My dad was very much a passionate hunter, and I spent a lot of time with him into my teenage years and learning the craft of hunting, and had sort of pursued it ever since, and it's been a big part of my life. And it took a number of years where I was pretty involved with hunting, yet I wasn't ready. And it was kind of 1 year where I was like, you know what, I think I'd like to experience that feeling of having harvested and then being able to share that experience with my peers, and in this case with my father and all his buddies, which I had very strong connections with all those guys. So the next day I went out and was hunting, and I came across a deer, and I actually shot at it and I missed it. I was literally like walking down the trail, kind of heading back towards camp, and I'm like kicking stones. It was like, and then this deer just like wandered out right in front of me, just kind of ran across the trail, and I just instinctively just went up and shot him, and he just fell over, and he was lying there dead, and I walked up to him and kind of had my first experience killing an animal. And there was a lot of complex emotions, but a lot of it was almost like relief, and I felt quite a sense of accomplishment, I guess, because I'd followed through with something I spent a lot of time engaged in, and it quickly transitioned into kind of a beautiful moment. My father called again on the radio, and he says, "What happened?" And I said, I shot a deer. There's a deer down here." And he's like, "Okay, I'll be right there." So he was a few hundred yards away back at camp, and yeah, he was like there at a shot. Like my poor father, he's got a limp and a bad knee, and like he doesn't move fast, but this is the one time he was there instantly, right? And you know, when he rolled up and he walked up and saw me and the deer, I mean, he was just, you know, tears in his eyes and just so full of pride. You kind of experience a lot of different emotions as you kind of go through the killing an animal, and certainly the shock of the initial, like the intensity of watching an animal die in front of you. It's very intense, and there is, you know, you feel definitely a connection with that animal instantly, that now you've taken ownership and responsibility for the animal. It's lying there. And so I felt all that in those moments, and that carried through for the whole process of when gutting the animal and transporting the animal back to camp, and then carefully putting it in, you know, up on the meat pole and cleaning up the meat and preparing it to eventually take back to a butcher. Yeah, incredible sense of responsibility and ownership. And I was the only kid in my community that got into hunting. I still don't have all that many friends my own age that were interested in hunting. So it was kind of a lost generation. More and more as I'm out there in the community, and someone like kind of tracked me down in the party and be like, "Hey, you're the guy who hunts, right? And I want to know, like, how do you get into hunting? And, you know, what are the steps? And what, you know, I'm kind of thinking about this." And the frequency of that conversation went from never ever happening when I was in high school and in the university to happening more and more. And then in the last sort of 5 years, it's fairly consistent that people were sort of seeking me out and asking me those questions, and I was mentoring and taking out people who were in my life and my friends who had, you know, the time and, you know, were able to come and explore hunting. And I was sort of finding myself training up a lot of friends and, you know, friends of friends to become hunters. It became kind of clear that there was an opportunity to try and develop some programming, create some workshops, I guess, and see if I can engage a larger group of people to make hunting more accessible to the community, instead of just happening to know Dylan, you know, through Facebook or something that you can make it a little more accessible.
Okay, so this is my hunting kit. In the act of actually hunting, this will be around my waist. This is a little knife that I recently bought. It's not particularly expensive. It's quite sharp though, and it's perfectly suitable for hunting deer or elk or even moose. I usually keep a radio with me so I can keep in touch with other hunting partners and check in once in a while. It's a great safety tool. I have a GPS with me. This GPS is, again, it's a great tool for when you start out on your hunt. You can mark where the truck is, you can mark where the camp is. This particular unit, at any point in time, if I hit this red button here, it'll actually send a message to a satellite saying that it's an emergency and I need help. Every safety kit should have a whistle in it. If you're ever lost, it's the best way to draw attention to yourself is to blow your whistle.
I ask people to say, what are their motivations? Like, why are they here in this class? And I'd say 90% of people say, I'm here because I want to make different choices about the food I eat, and I want to be more responsible to the meat I eat. The main issues for people with hunting, I think ultimately, is that people don't necessarily agree with killing animals if we don't have to. I've had conversations with folks who choose not to eat meat and do that because they don't want to see animals harmed in this world. But on the other hand, there's folks who oppose hunting because we don't need to hunt, because we're capable of farming, and farming is more efficient and doesn't harm wild animals. But obviously I'm well aware of the farming industry, and I'm well aware of some of the impacts to the land base, and also the treatment of the animals that are part of the industrial farming industry. I would much rather sign up to be the deer in the forest and getting chased around by me than signing up to be a cow in a feedlot, for sure. And I feel good about my choices around eating meat and pursuing wild meat. This is how we grew up. I mean, you go on adventures, you shoot a moose, that's your winter's meat. And I've always found it quite I go to the grocery store and I have to buy chicken or something like that. I'm like, holy, that's expensive. If someone's a vegetarian or they're making food choices because they don't want to harm animals, I mean, you got to respect those values, and I do. I mean, I love animals. I unfortunately don't make choices in my life that prevent me from killing animals, but anybody who does make those choices, I mean, I totally respect that and support that. And in fact, I have probably a more enlightened conversation with someone who's a vegetarian and making food choices about why they eat, why they decide to eat a vegetarian diet. And I have more common ground with the vegetarian than I do with someone who is kind of oblivious to where their food comes from and has opinions on hunting, but they're not attached to food systems. People are really talking about where their food comes from now and are really questioning that, and that's a positive thing. And that also creates an opportunity for me to have a larger discussion with more people who want to know about potentially harvesting wild game as a food source. And I think that's a good place to start, and that's a whole lot better than where we were 10, 15, 20 years ago in terms of rationalizing or justifying hunting in our current society.
Here it comes.
Being able to cook for lots of people is a real richness. I host and I take out a bunch of roasts and some fish and whatever, prawns or whatever I have laying around. And I think it maybe cost me like $30 at Donald's Market. I go buy some greens, some potatoes to mash up, a couple pounds of butter, a pound of bacon, and I can do dinner for 30 people. And that's it, like $30, maybe $40 if I'm going, upscale, right? And all my friends are sitting around a table and they're like so satisfied because they're, feasting on lovely wild meat that's been harvested over the year. And it's a real gift to be able to do that, because most people couldn't just do that at the drop of a hat, and without it being a significant cost. And for me, it's a great way to bring my friends together and celebrate the year's harvest. And at those events we talk about all the animals that we're eating and give thanks to those animals, and sort of how it just feels a great way to share and celebrate.